Welcome to the Corporate Treasury 101 podcast. This is the second part of our full interview with Chris van Dijl, where we discuss the different certifications out there and their relevance. Chris is a seasoned Treasury professional with over 25 years of experience. He worked his way up from Treasury Analyst to Group Treasurer in various countries before founding his consultancy and training firm, Cugavadi. Cugavadi, founded by Chris in 2014, specializes in consultancy and training services for corporate treasury and transaction banking. In the episode of today, expect to learn what are the main treasury certifications available worldwide, who delivers treasury certifications, what are some key differences and similarities between these certifications, is there a certain certification that is more recognized or preferred in the industry, what kind of commitments, time, study, examinations does each certification require, and much more. Chris is simply very fun to talk to, and as a former trainer of a renowned treasury certification himself, he is very knowledgeable about the topic. We hope you will enjoy the episode, and if that is the case, and when you think about how you found our podcast, chances are that it was through word of mouth, social media, or a recommendation from your favorite podcast platform. And this is our request to you. The only way we can get more and more amazing guests and get more people to learn about treasury is thanks to you. So if you enjoy what you hear and maybe learn a thing or two, please consider following the show, leaving us a review, or sharing this episode to help others discover it too. With all that being said, please welcome Chris van Dijl. Chris, I think it's time. Let's deep dive into those treasury certifications. So maybe to begin with, what are the treasury certifications out there? Then I want to touch upon how do you train for them, who delivers those, the key differences and so on. But to begin with, what is out there? So I think we mentioned CTP, Certified Treasury Professional in the US, delivered by the IFB, if my understanding is correct.
Yes.
And then we mentioned several delivered by the ACT. So CertICM, ANCT, MCT, let's break those down. And you mentioned a few that are more local as well. The RT for Dutch markets. Go on.
You've already mentioned most of them. You have in the US the Certified Treasury Professional, the CTP, mainly for the US. In the Netherlands, you have the Registered Treasurer, the RT, Registered Treasurer, which is actually not issued by a professional association, but by a university, the Free University of Amsterdam. And in Australia, they've recently started the Certificate in Corporate Treasury, the CCTA as well, which is very interesting for that market because it's so far away. It's very good to have their own certificate there as well. And those are the certifications that are more one-off of their professional association. When we go to the ACT, they actually have a whole breadth of treasury certifications, from limited ones, small ones, starter certifications, all the way to the way up. So as we said, they have their award in cash management, they have their certificate in international cash management, their certificate in treasury fundamentals, the certificate in treasury, and then the AMCT, which is officially called Diploma in Treasury Management, and the MCT, which is the Advanced Diploma in Treasury Management.
Okay. And this is when you become a big boss.
This is the MCT is when you are a group treasurer or already or very close to being a group treasurer. But there are more. There are very more regional ones and smaller ones as well. There is a QT, a qualified treasurer in the Netherlands as well. Here and there are some small ones as well. But if we look globally, and the ones that are really stand out that you want in your CV, those are probably the ones to have.
Super interesting. Let's say I have an MCT. So in the UK, I will be the god walking among the humans of treasury. Mm-hmm. Does that hold the same value in the US?
It depends on the treasurer and the recruitment department of the company in the US, whether they actually know of the ACT and the MCT. The interesting thing is when you look at job adverts for senior treasury manager, director treasury, group treasurer in the US, their requirement is usually what academic background do you need to have? It usually says MBA or CTP. Yeah,
Okay.
it doesn't mention any of the European or overseas qualifications. Very American, of course.
Definitely.
But the interesting thing is, and this is for the people that listen to this podcast in the US, you want to become a senior member in Treasury in the US, and it says MBA or CTP. An MBA is $100,000 plus for a good one. Yeah, a CTP is less than $2,000.
That's
So for investments, the choice is easy for me.
so. Let me get this right. A recruiter or a group treasurer, when they will be looking at their next treasury professional to add to their team, they will value a CTP almost as much as an MBA. But when they will
I
be
don't
looking
think
at,
it's the. I don't think it's they value it. I don't think it's the same. I think an MBA is much
Yes.
more, and that's exactly it. An MBA is much more. An MBA shows what kind of business acumen, strategic thinking, commercial thinking you have throughout your organization. Yeah, which means you can probably take on treasury if you have some treasury experience. A CTP really shows that you know your treasury.
super interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe before moving on to the next question, I think we didn't mention
One more point on that, which is really interesting. Sorry, just came to my mind. I've seen, and I've had this because I worked for US corporates in Europe. When US corporates are recruiting in Europe, they want to set up a treasury hub in London for the whole of Europe, and it's a US corporate. They often advertise it CTP preferred, even though the role is in Europe.
interesting.
So if you work in Europe and you want to work for American companies or North American companies, CTP might be very nice to have.
Interesting. And when you think about the fact that treasury is very big in the US and for US companies because of the amount of cash there is there and the different intricacies, CTP could be a very interesting one, even if you're based in Europe.
Right.
Super interesting. I think we didn't touch upon financial risk management. I believe there is a certification in there, Chris. Or
There is SAR.
something to think.
Yes. It is financial risk management, the FRM certification, which is very specialized. Is this very useful in treasury? Yes, it definitely would be, but only for a certain amount of people. It's very, very technical. It's very mathematical, and this would only be good for most, even in most corporates. It's nice to have, and if that's what you like, and that's what you want to do, it's good, but it's very technical. And this probably makes sense if you work for a billion-dollar company, a GE, a Shell, and you are on the trading desk and you really do risk management. Then it might definitely be worth it. On that second note, that there's another certification we call the BTRM, Bank Treasury Risk Management, which is really for people working in financial services, asset liability risk, market risk, which for some people in corporate treasury, it might actually make sense to take that if that's what your work is, or maybe that's just what you like to do.
Love it. So either, obviously the fundamental reason should always be you like it and you want to specialize in it. But my consulting senses are thinking as well. It could be super interesting to have a qualification in FRM, because then you are extremely valuable for all things financial risk management, and you can bring in that expertise. Because I know a lot of consultants in treasury after a few years also take treasury certifications to be of higher value for the corporation, the clients.
Yeah,
super interesting. Okay, that's for the nice part. Let's get into the nitty gritty. How do you actually train and obtain those certifications? What does it take?
Most of these certifications are now virtual. I think all of them now, thanks to COVID as well. So most of it is self-study. So you go to the website of the professional organization, you register, you pay your fees. They will send you the PDF syllabus, or with the CTP, you can actually go to Amazon and buy the book. You can even buy that without doing CTP. You can just buy the book. It's very simple. And it's a self-study, more or less. Yeah,
lovely.
And that's very nice. But the professional associations are assisting you as well. With the CTP, you can buy an additional learning module to get access to the learning module of the AFP that helps you in your study with practice questions, case studies, help you, and so forth. CTP the same way. They have their learning platform where you can ask questions to a tutor. You can have one-to-ones with a tutor. Yeah, there might be webinars, there might be sessions as well with other students, but mostly it is a self-study. Now, that especially is for the ACT. Sometimes the ACT offers in-house courses. So if you have a corporate or you're a bank and you want to train 20 people, 15 people, but most corporates don't have that many people that want to do the same qualification the same way. But for example, banks, a lot of transaction banks do actually do in-house courses from the ACT. The AFP have a different model. They actually allow third-party training institutions to train for the CTP certification.
Interesting.
So you might find wherever you are, whichever country you're in, that there is a training institute that actually delivers CTP training and qualification.
I want to have a separate part of this episode for the whole cost, but now that we are touching upon it, when you pay your Treasury certification to the Treasury Association, ACT, AFP, whichever you choose, you do not only pay for the actual stamp on your CV, but you pay for the training materials that you yet have to take alone and study alone.
Yes, well, you pay for the training first to get the book, and then once you pass, you normally have to pay again. And of course, you have to pass the exam. Yeah, because there's always an exam. Most exams now are virtual. You either have to go to a testing center or you do it from home with your webcam on, and they have this AI in the background to see that you're not cheating. But but you pay normally to take the exam, you get the course materials, and if you want to pay some extra for training, or it might be included as well.
Okay. Well, let's not spoil the pleasure and let's not say how much it costs yet, but definitely further down this episode, I want to touch upon this. The programs out there basically will be, you pay for your book, very expensive book, you study yourself, and then you take the exam. For the AFP, you have those kind of agreements with other training institutions that can help you study for it. Okay. What are the key differences between those different certifications? Because at the end of the day, a US-based company will value more a CTP, a UK or Europe-based will probably value more certification from the ACT. So what are the key differences and similarities when we actually look at the content of what is delivered in those certifications?
Although that the core, it's probably the same: cash management, risk management, financial risk management, funding, debt equity markets, and so forth. They are all tailored to their own markets. Yeah, very much. So the ACT used to be extremely British. Recently, they have now tried to make it more international because the ACT wants to also expand, get more students from overseas as well. So it's less British than it used to be. And they get now quite a few students from international as well, but still very British and European because they focus a lot more on the Eurozone and everything. The CTP, it's very specific on the US, and therefore you get a lot more understanding of the specific differences within the US cash management landscape. For those that know, issues like lockboxes, positive pay, reverse positive pay, and you learn how the Fed works with all the little Feds in all the states. How does monetary policy work there? So it's very much US focused. Once again, they now have expanded it to a larger section on. There's also something outside the US called International Treasury, but very much US focused. Which again, if you work for a US company in Europe, but you have to deal a lot with your US counterparties to learn about that, was very good. I remember I was working in Europe and I was moved by my company to the US. Yeah, and I suddenly had all these words about lockbox, positive pay, reverse positive pay, check 101, HCH fraud, and no clue. But then I took CTP and it actually helped me a lot to understand. Yeah, also they're thinking about international treasury. So it can help. As we said, the ACT is getting much more international, but in essence, it's still British.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And we have. So what I'm a bit wondering about is, all countries, obviously, and regions have their regulations, own tax constraints, legal constraints, and so on and so forth. In what you say, I hear that the US type of certifications or the CTP will take that a little bit more into account, which makes sense because the USA is also such a gigantic market. Right. do the Treasury certification take that into account? I mean, obviously we are not tax people, nor lawyers or legal people, but do they include this in the training, like giving a bit of a flavor of, okay, if you put a cash pool in place, an international one, you might have lending agreement and transfer pricing restrictions?
This is a big part of Treasury. Treasury and tax and regulations are so much intertwined, and you can't do anything in Treasury without any regulatory or tax influence. So all Treasury certifications take this into account, especially when they talk about international Treasury. Now, the moment you start touching on international Treasury, and whether it's the CertICM, Certificate International Cash Management, or the AMCT, there's large sections on the latest tax developments, transfer pricing, regulatory developments as well as latest technology developments. And this is the chapter that gets updated every 2 to 3 years. Yeah? Especially now with fintech, it's crazy.
And so once again, you anticipate my questions. That's amazing. So how do those Treasury certifications keep up to date with the latest trends, latest innovations? I mean, obviously in the Treasury department, at least a mature, half mature one, they will have a TMS in place. They will have automations in place. They will have systems that help them perform their daily tasks, which might require them a little bit less knowledge on the actual nitty-gritty and more, project management skills, for instance, or as you mentioned earlier, people skills. But so how do those Treasury certification take all this into account?
Yeah. So when they republish a new version of the Treasury certification, that syllabus probably stays out for about 3 to 4 years because it takes too long to update it. CertICM was recently updated in 2021. To make it with all the latest, what is fintech, how does fintech work, blockchain, crypto, how does blockchain work in Treasury, all that is now incorporated. But the world goes so fast, and therefore, once you are a student member of the association, you get access to all their publications on their websites. They will have webinars. There will be almost like site updates as well to keep you up to date with the latest developments. And I think that's one of the other benefit part that I haven't thought about, but actually could be a good one. Very often you only get access to the full website of the Treasury Association once you are a member, once you are certified.
Interesting.
And once you are certified, you can get research reports, the market updates, latest updates on technology developments, crypto, and so forth.
Wow. So any other certifications, as soon as you pay for the training and you validate your exam, you pass your exam, you have access for life to the latest publications and different.
Hold on. It is for life as long as you pay every year. Yes.
There is another fee. Okay.
That's a fee. Yes. And this is also the good thing about this certification, different from your university degree. University degree is once for life. For professional qualifications, you need to certify every year, or in the CTP every 4 years, I believe, that you have taken enough training. You have scored enough points so that you can maintain your qualification.
Okay, how much of an effort is that? Because if you need to refresh and retake exams every year, that's quite heavy, right?
But it's not an exam. You need to, for example, CTP, you need 36 points every 4 years, and every 1 hour of training or study is 1 point, I think. But if you go to a conference, you go to Eurofinance, you go to the ACT annual conference, you go to the AFP annual conference, that's 3 days. That's already 15 points out of your 36. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And then you can, and for the ACT, AFP, you can get points by being a member of another association. You can get points for working in Treasury and so forth. You can get points by going through training. They often have webinars that are CPD certified. So you listen to a webinar, you get confirmation you attended the 1 hour webinar, and that's then again another point. So it's not like you have to study again, but they want to make sure that people that have their professional qualifications are up to date, and not outdated.
That's very smart and also a very good business model.
Yeah.
Do they, out of curiosity, Chris, do you know if listening to podcasts could help you get CPD points? Or
if you contact the ACT or you contact the AFP and you get your podcast certified for CPD points, then they might get 1 point for every podcast that you listen to, as long as it's at least 45 minutes or 50 minutes. Yes.
We are talking. Okay, let's make sure we talk for still another half an hour, Chris.
Sure.
Well, that's very interesting. Okay, good to know. So how do this, because I wanted to touch upon this as well. So you get kind of credits for every treasury knowledge actions you take throughout your career, throughout your year. So attending to a webinar, attending to a conference, participating into maybe panel discussions, all this kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
What is out there? What can we do to make sure once we graduate from that and we obtain that certification, we keep it?
It's staying up to date. So listening to webinars, going to conferences, following treasury training, and very often internal in-house trainings are also certified. In my work, everybody in whole finance, we had a huge one-day session on working capital in our company because it's treasury related, and you can prove that you did it because you probably got an invitation from HR department. Then you can prove and you can use that. And staying up to date. So doing some quizzes. Sometimes there's a quiz, and when you pass the quiz, 10 questions, multiple choice, you get another 1 point. So all these little things.
Okay.
That's and usually you do more than you actually think you do once you think about all the things that you can do.
And that's for the CTP. Does the ACT work the same way, or?
The ACT works the same way, but it's self-certification. You don't need to register everything online. You just need to click a button and say, yes, I have done all the things I need to do. But they do an audit and they pick a couple of people every year to check that you actually did it.
Now I'm reassured. Okay, makes lots of sense.
Yeah.
Maybe to finish on this one question before moving on to, because I really want to touch upon the cost part, because there seems to be very interesting things to talk about. What kind of commitments does each treasury certification require exactly? And I'm thinking time, study, examinations, you need to go in an exam center. What are you getting into when you say, okay, I want to study for a treasury certification and pass the exam?
It depends on the type of certification, of course. Once we go for the basic one of the ACT, for example, this normally can be done within 3 months. If your knowledge is quite good, it's normally 3 to 6 months. I know people that have done it in 1 month. I know people who've done it in 6, but the basic ones are probably around that, 3 to 6. Yeah. If you look at bigger ones, it's a bit more. Yeah. If we look at the CTP, for example, the CTP, according to the AFP themselves, it takes about 6 to 12 months. And I think that's a fair one for the CTP. Yeah. Because that's the one most people will be interested in. For the AMCT, which is a lot bigger, a lot more topics, a lot more units, this is about a year and a half, 12 to 18 months for the AMCT.
Wow. Okay. And so when you say 1 to 3 months, 6 to 12 months, 1 year and a half, this is assuming what, like 1 hour of study a day, 10 hours of study a week? What kind of time commitment are we looking into?
It depends. See, the reason why it's 12 to 18, it really depends on how much you can put in. Yeah, and you can put it longer. For some of them, there's no timeline. For the CTP, you have 2 years to do your exam after you pay. So you have 2 years to do it, really. It really depends how much time can you put in. But if you do CTP, if you do AMCT, these are big ones, especially the AMCT, it's a 4 separate units. It will take at least a Saturday a week. Let's put it that way.
And the exam
it's a real commitment. It's a real commitment. Let's focus on the 2 big ones. I think that's the most important one. Yep. The CTP, you go to a exam center in your city, close to you. It's a number of multiple choice questions. So it's 1 exam, 210 minutes, 170 multiple choice questions.
That goes fast.
Yeah. 1 exam, 210 minutes. So how many hours is that? 3-4 hours?
Yeah, 2 hours. A bit more, 3 hours in the house.
And 170 multiple choice questions.
So barely more than a minute per question.
More or less, yes. And some of the questions you'll do in 10 seconds. Some questions might take you 3 minutes because you need to do a calculation. It's pretty intense, yeah.
Very cool.
For the AMCT, if we want to go there, The AMCT is, I'm just getting my details up here so I can give you the exact information.
I love when it's live like this. That's perfect.
The exams are now taken from your home. Yeah, it's very good. You can do it behind your own laptop, your own computer. You need to have your webcam on. You need to have your mic on, and have some AI. Everything's AI these days, right? There's some AI in the background, a robot checking what you do to make sure that you don't have a book laying on your lap or you're not texting with somebody for answers, and they will know whether there's any odd things happening in the background. Yes. And basically, the AMCT is 45 units, and every unit has an exam. Yeah, so it's not like you take one exam and you pass. That's really unique. You need to take the 4 exams, and there's 1 exam per unit, and then there is a 1 exam per unit. Every unit has 180 minutes, so 3 hours. Okay. Right? And there's also a pre-seen case study. So the ACT actually gives you a case study before the exam that you can analyze. Yeah, and then the questions come in the exam. Very nice. Really cool. It's very cool, but it's a very difficult case study. Yes, it's very good. And then in the exam itself, there will be another 2 small case studies, scenario-based questions in the exam as well. Very cool.
And so this one, the total length of the MCT one is how long?
4 exams of 180 minutes.
Okay. Amazing.